Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? Lyle Blackburn, the legendary host and monster hunter. This must mean it is time for Midnight Lycanthropy once again here on StarFox Radio. I must attend to something real quick before we do get ready to go Dogman hunting. Yes, I have many perks, yet that is also something that I must take care of to keep myself healthy. Well, without further ado, it is time for Lyle Blackburn, the monster hunter, and myself to go Dogman tracking.
Werewolves. Do they exist? Some would say they do. Perhaps not in the traditional sense of humans transforming into beasts, but in the form of an extraordinary canid with the ability to walk upright on two legs. A huge, hairy abomination that prowls our forests and flatlands, staying elusive enough to remain unproven, but not completely beyond encounters with humankind. For years, stories of these werewolf-like creatures, or dogmen as they are commonly referred to in the cryptid world, have circulated around campfires and kitchen tables, suggesting that some kind of uncanny beast is at the source of our long-standing lycanthrope legends. The tales exist in all cultures, including those of America's Deep South. What lurks in the southern forests and swampy bottomlands of these areas? Find out on this episode of Monstro Bizarro. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Lyle Blackburn, and I'm here under the full moon, ready to explore the lurid legends of lycanthropes and modern sightings of mysterious dogmen. Ever since I saw the classic horror film The Wolfman, I've been enthralled with the archetype of the werewolf. Of course, when I was young, I didn't really understand the history of werewolves. I simply thought of the Wolfman as a movie monster. Later, I learned of the long-standing werewolf lore and traditions of the old world, and then, as I began to research cryptids and real-life monsters, I learned of the reported sightings of bizarre creatures that resemble these traditional werewolves, both in the backwoods and in the shadowed corners of our own city streets. In the last several years, there's been a huge surge of Dogman sightings, which is essentially a category of cryptozoology that deals with bipedal canids. Canids being the scientific family of mammals that includes wolves, jackals, foxes, coyotes, and, of course, dogs. Dogmen are the cryptid equivalent of werewolves. These real wolfmen, so to speak, have also crossed into the realms of the deeper paranormal, where they are considered to be something beyond a biological animal. The fascination with sightings of modern wolfmen was ignited by the Beast of Bray Road case out of Wisconsin. My friend and colleague Linda Godfrey was one of the first to thoroughly investigate these kind of reports. She's an author and journalist who lives in the area of Elkhorn, Wisconsin, where sightings of a large wolf-like creature were being reported in the vicinity of a lonely road called Bray. At first she was skeptical, but once she started looking into the facts, she discovered that the witnesses were very credible and the case was completely baffling. She wrote several newspaper articles about the case before eventually publishing a book called The Beast of Bray Road. It's become a classic in cryptozoological literature and has been a driving force behind the subject of dogmen. Once the Bray Road case became widely publicized, people began to talk of other cases from all over North America and beyond, where people encountered these intimidating bipedal wolves. This includes many areas of the South, where I've done a lot of research myself. One of the first modern stories of a werewolf-type creature in the Deep South originates from the town of Converse, Texas. Converse is located in Bexar County, northeast of San Antonio. The area is quite populated now, but at one time it was wide-open country on the arid scrubland of South Texas. As the story goes, back in the late 1800s, a rancher, who was said to be a Civil War veteran, settled near Converse with his son. The son was not as much of an outdoorsman as his father, and therefore somewhat of a disappointment. So the father decided he would make a man out of him by sending him out to hunt alone. He figured the experience might be rewarding and therefore make a real hunter out of the boy. The father gave him a rifle and told him to go out and kill a deer. The father directed his son to a wooded area along a creek called Skull Crossing, where he knew there would be plenty of deer. The boy was reluctant, but eventually headed off as his father demanded. A few hours later, the kid returned to the house empty-handed and noticeably shaken. His father was angry, but the boy said he did not want to hunt there any longer because he had seen a monster that resembled a werewolf lurking in the woods. He thought it might be trying to stalk him, so he fled back to the house. Of course, the father thought the wild story was just an excuse, so he forced his son to go back down to the creek and finish the hunt. When nightfall came and the boy hadn't returned, the father began to worry. Perhaps he shouldn't have sent his inexperienced son out to hunt by himself. So he rounded up a few of the closest neighbors and headed down to Skull Creek and began searching by lantern light. A short time later, they came upon a horrifying scene. The boy was lying on the ground in a pool of blood. A monstrous, hairy creature was hunched over him, eating his flesh. When the creature saw the search party, he rose up on two legs and took off running. The men tried to shoot it, but it escaped into the thick trees surrounding the creek. It appeared to be some kind of a wolf that stood approximately 8 feet tall and could run on two legs. The only thing they could compare it to was a werewolf. The father was devastated and felt guilty for not believing his son's story about the wolf thing. According to the tale, the man either died a short time later from grief or became a recluse. Although there are no newspaper articles that document the incident, the story of the so-called Converse werewolf has circulated as one of the oldest monster legends from Texas. Now, whether this really happened or whether it was even a werewolf is impossible to tell. It does contain many aspects of traditional folklore. but at least the story establishes that there is a history of werewolf legends going back to at least the 1800s in the American South. This wide-open area of South Texas seems to be rife with monster lore, well beyond that of a werewolf.
May 15th, 1901, Marble Falls, Texas. Rami Arnold is the beautiful daughter of a local farmer. It's evening, so she steps outside to go check on their flock of sheep. As Rami approaches the flock, she sees what appears to be a large wolf bear standing in front of her. Screaming out in horror, the animal begins to snarl and growl. Hearing the commotion, Rami's mother grabs a rifle and rushes outside to also see this large creature. It picks up Rami and begins running off into the forest on two legs with the young girl. Terrified, the mother runs towards town and gathers a search party. It wasn't until the next day, miles away from their farm, the hunters found young Rami aimlessly wandering around. Helping the girl home, she tells the men she had been walking to the path to check her sheep when all of a sudden an enormous black wolf bear grabs her with its hands and then runs off. Eventually, they arrive at a cave, and Rami said the creature just leaves her there, but every time she tried to yell or escape, this strange wolf bear would violently hit her. Eventually, this creature became tired and fell asleep, and after waiting for quite a while, Rami makes a dash for it and eventually meets up with a group of hunters. 1990, 12 a.m., Taylor, Texas. 15-year-old Josh Turner is supposed to be home by 11 p.m., but he and his friend Dave have decided to go egging cars and be troublemakers. Realizing it was super late, Dave agrees to walk Turner halfway home, and as the boys are almost there, they see what they think is one of the neighbors' German shepherds sitting in a ditch, whistling out at the dog. Turner and Dave suddenly realize it's not a dog at all. This creature whips around and looks directly at them. To their terror, they realize it's a human-like German shepherd, and it's squatting down on two back legs and has enormous arms, two bright yellow eyes, and is a smoky gray color. Startled, the two boys run back towards Dave's house. As they are approaching his yard, they could see the creature 30 yards away, trying to insert its dog-like feet into an 8-foot chain-link fence in an attempt to climb over into the neighbor's yard and into Dave's. Running inside, Turner hears Dave's little brother crying in the other room and his mother yelling out in the kitchen for her husband. "Oh my God, it climbed the fence. Hurry up. It's looking in the window." Grabbing his shotgun, Dave's father stepped outside, but was unable to track the creature. The following morning, the family found enormous canine tracks in the mud underneath the kitchen window. The distance measured from the ground to where the creature was seen staring into the window was 7.5 feet tall.
The following is a real report of a Dogman. This comes from Lake Texoma in North Texas, very close to where I live. It was July 4th, 2018. Larry Thibodeau, his younger brother Buster Thibodeau, and their friend Danny head out in their small 25-horsepower motorboat for a very remote part of the lake. After 3 hours, as dusk is approaching, The men pull their boat ashore and begin setting up to go jugging for catfish. Larry and Buster asked Danny to go turn on the spotlight so they could see better, because it was now dark. After a few minutes of fiddling with the old rusty wires, Danny was able to fire up the spotlight. As Larry is reeling in the fish he had just caught, the spotlight turns off, and the only light the three men have is the illumination of the full moon. As the men are unhooking the fish, they begin to hear snarling and a low growl coming from somewhere nearby in the darkness. As the creature comes closer, the three men hear the sound of a large canine breathing heavily and snarling from about 20 yards away and closing. Startled, the two brothers tell their friend Danny to go get the spotlight started back up. Starting it up, this time, though on the first time, Danny shines it in the direction of the animal, and suddenly the growling stops. Feeling uneasy, Larry and Buster begin packing up the fishing gear. All of a sudden, a massive rock flew by them and hit the water. Shining the light in the direction the projectile came from, the three men are horrified to see a pair of red, glowing eyes. They belong to a massive black wolf. The light went out again. As Danny was trying to get the spotlight back on, the two brothers hear this creature rustling around in the brush ahead of them. Getting the light back on, the three men see a 5.5-foot tall black wolf staring at them. To make things worse, with its two human-like arms, the creature began pushing itself up onto its hind legs. As the creature was doing this, the three men heard two loud pops, sounding as if this werewolf, so to speak, had to break its bones to now be standing upright on two legs. It was glaring at them. The creature went from 5 feet to now almost 10 feet standing upright. The creature began making a strange vocalization. Shortly afterwards, the three men heard the sound of a second creature coming towards them. Again, the spotlight goes out. Terrified, Danny gets the light back on yet again. To the three men's terror, there were now two of these werewolves staring at them from a very short distance away. Running towards the boat, the three start the engine up and hear the two creatures barreling towards them as the boat pulls away. Danny shines the light in the direction of the creatures. They were splashing in the water towards them until they turned back towards the shore, letting out angry howls of rage. Larry and Buster said after this encounter, they've only spoken to Danny once, and none of them enjoy the wilderness like they once did. And who could blame them?
Thank you for everyone who stopped by tonight to hang out with Lyle Blackburn and myself for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. If you enjoy my content and would like me to keep churning it out, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm. Until next time, I must get some rest.